Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Chiefs Kingdom, welcome to we are every step closer, one game away from the Super Bowl and the chance for a three-peat. In the Chiefs' way, the Buffalo Bills visiting Arrowhead. This is huge. This might be the most. I think it's good. This game is going to set NFL ratings, records. Everyone's watching. This is it. Adam Best, AFC Championship game on deck. How are you tonight?
I'm jacked to the tits, man. I'm just fired up. And hey, guys, I know I'm an Adam, but with everything that's going on with Adam Schefter, don't hold it against all of us Adams. You know, there's me, there's Adam Sandler. Not all of us are bad guys, all right?
And Schefter, I barely know her. Anyway, we're getting to all the action here for you in the pregame in the next 30 minutes before we get ready for kickoff. Harrison Butker's just going to kick it out. If we go over, Harrison Butker's just going to kick it out in the end zone anyway, so that's what's going to happen. We're good. We're ready for this. The Bills defeated the Chiefs by 9 earlier this season back in week 11. That game established a good confidence for the Bills. They had a wonderful season. It's fitting that these are the final two teams. But Adam, I want to kind of reflect back on week 11 and then look forward here and see for you. There's a lot of differences. We wrote a lot about this on the site this week, but I'm wondering for you, how much are you looking at that game in any sort of like crystal ball-ish kind of way for what could happen tonight at Arrowhead?
It's just a totally different beast. You know, the Chiefs approached the regular season and postseason differently. I'm not going to go as far as saying that they weren't trying to win or their game plan was so basic that it gave the Bills a victory. But I do think there are some buttons that they tend to push in high leverage situations that they weren't pushing. And I also think it meant more to the Bills because they were the ones that had been thinking about that game for 11 months, just stewing over the Chiefs once again, getting them in the playoffs. So I think you have to take something away from it. But really, the thing I want to look at, and this isn't directly week 11, but the Buffalo Bills are incredible in Orchard Park. They're an incredible team at home. They're good anywhere, but they're especially good at home. But if you look at their record this season on the road against playoff teams, they are 1-3. I'm going to run through that real quick. Week 4, they lost to the Ravens 10-35. Week 5, they lost to the Texans 20-23. Week 14, they lost to the Rams 42-44. And then in week 15, they eked by the Lions 48-42. I know maybe the Bills had a few injuries, but the Lions were really beat up too. During that stretch, the defense allowed 36 points per game. Sean McDermott, the head coach, I thought he really choked, particularly in that Rams game. And if you look at the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott regime, they have 0 road playoff wins during that era. And so I just don't think this is some juggernaut road team. I just think the punditry around having this mass confidence in them coming into Arrowhead and stealing a win or blowing out the Chiefs or something, there's just no credence to that. So I think they have a lot of demons to exercise. The history of this franchise against Mahomes. So I'm not totally saying you throw out week 11, but I'm kind of saying you throw out week 11.
Sure. Let me play devil's advocate here. I think both sides could say that. I think both sides could go. I think even Buffalo could say, hey, look, week 11, we're a totally different team. Spencer Brown is back. Keon Coleman is playing. Dalton Kincaid is healthy. They put up 30 on the Chiefs defense before, and they didn't have, their right tackle and two of Josh Allen's major weapons. What do you say to even something like that?
Major weapons, maybe not major.
Okay. But if you were to say that the Chiefs had been without Xavier Worthy, they'd been without Travis Kelce, and they'd been without like Jawan Taylor, you would be boasting about those things coming in.
I mean, Spencer Brown and Matt Milano are legitimate. Those are incredible players.
Right. Milano on the defensive side. Right.
But Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, good player, not Travis Kelce. And the other thing I'd say is, okay, since that game, you get to watch the tape and you get to recalibrate. Who do you trust to do that more? Joe Brady, Bobby Bakich, and Sean McDermott,
sure,
or Nagy, Spags, and Big Red, especially when the Chiefs had that 3.5 week extended bye period. And maybe this is just me, but it was always my hunch that the second best quarterback was going to end up playing the first best quarterback at some point. And I think they've been prepping for the Buffalo Bills. They're going to throw a lot of new wrinkles at the Buffalo Bills. And don't get me wrong, the Buffalo Bills are an incredible team. They're a deep team. I don't think they have any like one fatal flaw, but I just keep going back to their history in the playoffs, this coaching staff, and how clutch the Chiefs are in the play. I mean, really anywhere, but that nucleus of Butker, Spags, Reed, Jones, Mahomes, and Kelce in the clutch. How are the Bills going to match that? Who is Josh Allen going to go to target-wise when this game gets tight? Who's going to come up on their defense and make a big play when this game gets tight? I like Greg Rousseau. I like Ed Oliver, but these guys are not on the same planet as one Chris Jones.
Let's talk about Chris Jones especially. Let's talk about what Spags is going to want to do up front against these Bills. We've already watched what he tried to do against Buffalo in the first game. There were lots of blitzes, but we also know last year in the playoffs, he really backed off that blitz in the road win at Buffalo. So we've seen Spags take multiple approaches to facing Buffalo, and the results have been a little bit mixed here. But with the Chiefs pass rush doing what they are, Omenihu back, Karlaftis last week 8 sacks against Stroud, whatever. What do you expect to see in this one, given the history there?
Probably something in the middle. And that's kind of a chicken shit answer, but it's probably right. I think he didn't blitz him as much last year because you got L'Jarius Sneed back there. You got Mike Edwards. That's a more experienced secondary. They could probably get away with a little more. I like Jalen Watson a lot. I think that makes you maybe not have to blitz as much because you don't feel like you're outgunned, right? With him back there. And let's just cross our fingers that he is as close to 100% as he could possibly be, given what he went through earlier in the season. I think Spags, you're playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yes.
You know how you had those uppercuts and you only had a limited number of them?
Hit the start key and you.
Yeah. That's what Spags does with his exotic blitzes. And I think with Josh Allen, you can't throw that kind of stuff at him too much because then he starts to realize what you're doing. He gets comfortable with it. You just have to wait till he gets his guard down or until the game is tight late and he's pressing a little bit, because the other thing about him not having this go-to target, and Bills fans, Khalil Shakir is a really good player. I don't think he's a true NFL go-to guy, gotta have it guy. I think there's a chance. He's been a very good steward of the ball, Josh Allen has. But I think there's a chance he wants this so bad that he's going to put that Superman cape on and try to do a little too much. And Spags might be able to catch him there and then force him into a mistake.
That's interesting. By the way, if we're playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out, are the Bills Soda Popinski or are they Bald Bull? I don't know. I'm just asking. People want to know. Hey, look, let's we're talking about the front part of the defense here and what they're going to do against the Bills offensive front there. How much are you worried about Josh Allen, though, like having to spy on Allen. I mean, he's a mismatch for every team. It's not, I mean, if he runs all over the Chiefs, it's not the Chiefs' fault. Allen runs all over everybody. He's a total mismatch in the way that like Mahomes is a mismatch. You don't blame someone if Mahomes goes off on them. But like what? Yeah. What do you think of Allen's ability to kind of make that difference with his legs in this game?
It's the thing that scares me the most as a Chiefs fan in the entire league.
Okay.
It just is. Josh Allen is the one player, when he's on a roll, I sit back and say, this must be what it's like for opposing fans to go up against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's how good Josh Allen is. And in the last game, they had the ball 8 more minutes. They ran 19 more plays than the Chiefs offense did. So you just can't let them convert on third down like they did last time. Last time they converted on 9 of 15. And I think on that fourth down, it was 4th and 2 that he had the big run on, right? You just can't let him, you got to keep him behind the sticks. And I know last game he picked up some 3rd and 9, some 3rd and 8s, what have you. But I think with a Minihue and Jalen Watson, the Chiefs are a little bit more, they're more well positioned to stop them on 3rd and long than they were the last go around.
Mm-hmm. Let's switch sides here. We've been talking about the Bills. Now, you said the Bills really lack kind of that go-to target. You said, you know, you gave props to Shakir. We've talked about Kincaid. We talked about Coleman, others. What about the Chiefs? Because if you're looking at the Chiefs, Travis Kelce goes off last week, but he's not been the same overall this season. And then he turns into playoff Trav. First of all, are we going to see playoff Trav tonight? And then I'll get to the rest of the Chiefs offense.
I think we're absolutely going to see him. He's set up super well here. First of all, Taylor Rapp, their excellent safety, is going to miss this game. The rookie Cole Bishop out of Utah. I like Cole Bishop, but he's not ready to guard Travis Kelce, the GOAT, in Arrowhead for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. He's not ready for that. I don't think he's ready for that. He might prove me wrong. Good for him if he does. But then you also have Matt Milano, who's playing, kind of tweaked his hamstring last week. Taron Johnson, I don't know if he's going to be in a shoulder harness or what, but he hurt his shoulder and neck late in that game. Christian Binford's coming off a concussion. I just think that back 7 is a little beat up. And when you think about Travis Kelce and the yak and his knack for getting open and kind of finding where you're weak and exploiting that weakness, he's just set up for a really good game. Historically, he's been great against Buffalo in the playoffs. I know he only had 2 catches for 8 yards in the regular season, but like you said, playoff Travis is a different beast. And I think he's been looking forward to just making it to the postseason, taking care of his body, and then turning it up a notch.
I think if I'm a Bills fan, I listen to what you said about my offense, and then I look at the Chiefs and think, well, I'm not a believer in Travis. And then also I'm looking and like, you know, you dismiss Coleman. I think Worthy's maybe not there yet as like the go-to. Hopkins not being utilized like people thought. Hollywood Brown hasn't had like this 100-yard game, breakout effort, whatever. Could you say the same thing about the Chiefs in a way?
You could in a way, but if you go down the list, you've seen more from Worthy than you have Coleman. You've seen more from Kelce than Kincaid. You've seen more historically from Hopkins and Amari Cooper. Curtis Samuel has not accomplished as much in his career as Hollywood Brown. So I think where the Bills, if you want to hang your hat on something as a Bills fan, it's that your line looks better right now, and your run game is certainly better. James Cook, Ray Davis, that run game looks excellent, and I think that's the road to Buffalo coming out and beating the Chiefs. I've kind of set the number at like, if Josh Allen and those backs start getting over 100 yards total as a group, as that number goes up, the proposition of winning gets dicier and dicier for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Hopkins, I think everyone thought there was going to be a breakout last week against Houston. I think everyone thought, oh, we're kind of saving him for the postseason, and he's facing his old team, whatever. Do you think we're going to see some heroics from a guy that I think came with all the, we got our guy midseason, especially with all the injuries? Kind of curious if you expect any big things from him tonight.
I think so. We've seen a little bit of it on that, like, the big stage of that Monday Night Football game against the Bucs.
Yeah.
When they really played him a lot of snaps and kind of funneled things through him, I think he's still got it. We've seen some big moments from him. He had one of the best sideline catches I've ever seen in my life this season.
Yeah.
I think he's still got it. I think there's a combination of things going on. First of all, the draft pick, they didn't want to play him too many snaps. His health, he started the season with a knee injury, and he's just kind of old. And then last week, there's a pretty damn good argument that Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley are the best set of corners in the league that any team can boast. So I'm trying to talk myself into DeAndre Hopkins because I am a little worried about the performance last week from, frankly, both him and Hopkins. But I think there's a pretty good bull case that both those guys are going to show up tonight, and that the Chiefs receiver group is a little bit stronger than what's on the other side.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I want to go to Worthy for a second, because Worthy looks different now than he did in week 11, right? He has become a much more mature player overall. The Chiefs are doing more with him, going to him. He's gotten major shares of targets and touches compared to some other players lately. You mentioned the banged up nature of that secondary, and Worthy's the guy who's just gonna, like, he's got the wheels for exactly this moment. To me, this feels like the kind of matchup where it's like, if you want, like, we've been revving the engine, we've been ready to go. We've kind of, like, in park, we like pushed the gas pedal a few times to see what Worthy could do, and he did well with all those touches. This feels like the kind of game where everyone was like, remember in the draft where everyone was like, oh shit, when the Chiefs got Worthy because of the potential. This feels like the kind of game where everyone's like, because that's what we were talking about. Do you feel that way about Worthy in this game on a maybe a deep route or two or some creative plays from Andy Reid?
Not so much on the deep routes, just because I don't think he and Mahomes have the chemistry there yet, and that's okay. And maybe this is the week they have their breakthrough. I would absolutely love to see that. That would be a huge development for this franchise. Where I do think you'll see him do some serious damage is they've been kind of dialing up these plays from McCole and Tyreek Hill for almost going on a decade, right? I mean, Tyreek Hill, going back to him, it is a decade. So I think they have some aces up their sleeve for Xavier Worthy, maybe even some things they've been setting up throughout the season with what they put on tape for Xavier Worthy. I think expect him to have 6 to 8 touches, and if he rounds the corner and gets into open space and it turns into a punt return, we saw in week 1, he can house it, right? I would love to see, I think that's where he could have his biggest impact, is on a reverse or a jet sweep or something that where he takes it to the house.
Joe Thuney staying left side. Andy said earlier this week, obviously that means Caliendo at left guard. And then, of course, the dogs up front over to Jawan Taylor. How are you feeling about the Chiefs' offensive line at this point, the decision to go with Thuney, what we saw last week, and what they're going to do against the Bills?
Oh, well, the left side of the line is somewhat compromised. I think we just have to admit that to ourselves, because Thuney at left guard down to Caliendo, pretty massive downgrade. And even maybe Joe Thuney compared to Donovan Smith last year, at best, that's even, right? And I think this is more. Yeah, I think he doesn't really have the physical traits to play that position the way some of these longer guys have, and
Sure.
and he doesn't have as much experience with the footwork, and it's just sort of a new position to him. I know he's acquitted himself so well that it's hard to see it like that, right? But I am worried about the left side of that line, and actually I'm going to turn my focus to the right side of the line. Jawan Taylor, Trey Smith. I think because of the state of the left side of the line, they're going to have to play clean, dominant football. I don't want to see any flags from those two. I want to see those guys bullying the Bills on the right side. And because of where the line's at, I think this is why the case for playing Kareem Hunt so much more than Isaiah Pacheco. If the line is worse, especially in the interior now, things like vision and contact balance and patience are at a premium. And those just aren't traits that Isaiah Pacheco has. He has a lot of juice. He's an explosive, tough runner, but his vision is lacking. So I think I'm hoping we get heavy doses of Kareem Hunt and then Samaje Perine, and don't see a lot of Pacheco. I know I'm kind of going to the run game now, but the run game and the offensive line are interconnected, right?
Yeah. How much of the run game do you think Big Red has to go with tonight against the Bills to keep them honest, or like, what's your expectation there just in terms of play calling balance, assuming the score stays close?
Well, the Bills are going to be stubborn and stay in nickel no matter what. So I think what you're going to see, especially because the Chiefs believe in Noah Gray. He's been a really strong performer for them this season, especially when you need him. He's got a reliable pair of hands. He can do a lot of things on the offense. So I think you might see some 12 personnel, some 2 tight end looks to see if they can kind of bully a smaller Bills defense maybe. Andy Reid is Andy Reid. He's ultimately going to air it out, and his version of the running game is, I'm going to run it less than probably any other team in the league, and then I'm going to do these jet sweeps and screens and these other things that are sort of an extension of the run game. But this is just the way Andy Reid does things.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of players, but the most important 2 on the field, Josh Allen, we've already given him kudos. Patrick Mahomes, what a week for him. We mentioned Adam Schefter's irresponsible reporting before the game. In case you don't know, or have been kind of hiding from social media, which we don't blame you. Adam Schefter has been sort of throwing Mahomes under the bus, if you will. Mahomes catching strays from the NFL's most popular reporter for saying that, for using him as sort of the lightning rod for these officiating issues, etc. Adam, I want to go to you. We don't need to talk about Schefter and that kind of stuff so much, although we can if you want. But I guess more importantly, this has been like, as the week has ramped up, the anti-Chiefs sort of hysteria is ridiculous. The talking points are sensational. Very few are cutting through the noise. But to me, it seems like loads of bulletin board material. Do you think the Chiefs needed that, fueled by that? What do you think? And then a Mahomes specifically.
He's about as motivated of a person as you could possibly find already. I think when you look at the contracts that have been handed out to him and Travis and Chris, the fact that they're still winning rings and showing up and getting the 1 seed, they don't need any extra motivation. But the fact that they have it, and the fact that the rest of the roster has it, you're not going to catch them resting on their laurels or being fat and happy with 2. I think they want this 3-peat. I think the Adam Schefter thing really pushes this me against the world feeling they must be having in that locker room into hyperdrive. Because, this is he and Ian Rappaport are supposed to be the most respected sports reporters in our country. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be objective. And his framing was, it was kind of malicious. It was ridiculous. He's basically fueling the conspiracy theories. And I think the thing that makes me incensed is, say you don't like the Chiefs, say you're sick of the Chiefs, but give them their flowers. They have earned being a dynasty. They are one of the most clutch teams of all time, one of the greatest teams of all time. And I think they have to be irritated with people trying to kind of sully their greatness.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Speaking of Mahomes on the field tonight, are we going to see Mahomes magic? What do you expect to see against this Bills defense in particular after watching what he did in Week 11?
I want to see mistake-free football. That is the thing that Patrick Mahomes does so well. Is he makes an occasional big-time throw. He is a magician with knowing when to scramble, and he's much more willing to scramble in the postseason. I think that's one reason why they have more success in the postseason, why they get more roughing the passer calls in the postseason. So I just want to see him not turn the ball over, put the pressure on Josh Allen to also be perfect. You've done this more times than he has. You've been through this more times than he has. You've even been through these kind of big games where you lose more than he has. So I think just last time he came right out and threw an interception. You can't have that again. You can't have that. That totally started the last game off on the wrong foot. And really, I think what's going to be interesting is they kind of spied him last game. They kind of like flushed him to one side and would have a linebacker spy on him. The Chiefs didn't really do that with Josh Allen. I'm not sure why. Maybe Jalen Watson being out put them in a position where they couldn't have maybe Leo Chanel spying him, because they had great success doing that week 1 with Lamar Jackson. So I think who effectively does the better job of spying and maybe prevents those back-breaking third down scrambles, one of these two guys is going to have a third down scramble late that just breaks the spirit of the opposing defense, I believe.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. I want to ask you some kind of quick hit questions here as we get toward the end of our time and close to game time. If, like you mentioned earlier, that some of these guys, you're like, hey, the Bills don't have a number one guy like that, but the playoffs make some of these guys like a big postseason game, and suddenly you're well known. If the Chiefs have a guy like that tonight, who's going to make his name known on a much greater level, like, do you have a prediction of who that would be?
Trent McDuffie. Yeah,
even more so than he already is.
I think even more so than he already is. I think that people in football media know him. People in the NFL know him. I think Chiefs Kingdom certainly knows him. Your football diehards, but I don't think he's a household name. And I think tonight, and if they're lucky enough to get to the Super Bowl, this is an opportunity for him to kind of break through and be seen as maybe. I mean, Joe Tooney is so quiet and unassuming that I don't think he'll ever step into fourth superstar on this team. But I think Trent McDuffie has the opportunity to do so. And all three of these wide receivers, right? They for Hollywood and DeAndre Hopkins in particular, I know they've been around for a while. This is probably going to be the best chance either one of them gets at a ring. So also kind of throwing them out there. I know that they're not kind of homegrown stars like Trent McDuffie. Who's your kind of chief that you think has an opportunity to step up and make himself a household name?
Yeah, I think the linebacking core has their work cut out for them with Allen and his scrambling possibility, as well as the running game, as well as Kincaid. I'm a little bit higher on Kincaid than you are in his future. That said, I think Nick Bolton standing on the edge of being rewarded this offseason with a contract from somebody. I think there's a payday there. I think Nick Bolton's going to realize just how big this week is. I mean, I'm hoping that Nick Bolton really steps up in a way, because there's money on the line, very, very real money on the line for guys like that. And Trey Smith, for example. So the linebacking core being what it is, all eyes are going to be on it. I think Bolton. Let me ask you this. If Buffalo wins tonight, what do you think the reason is probably going to have been?
They dominate the time of possession, that they run the ball successfully, that Josh Allen on design runs and scrambles, he just has his way with the Kansas City defense too much. And the Chiefs just don't have enough possessions. Like last game, Mahomes, I don't think really just had the opportunity to go out there and win it because he got 20 plays less, 8 minutes less. That's a problem. And I would say the other thing is that they had turnovers and didn't put their superior special teams in a position to decide the game.
Yeah. I think if you're looking for weaknesses on the field, Mike Caliendo may be the worst starter, or one of the worst starters on the lot. If you're Buffalo, go ahead. You go ahead.
I have to mention one other player because you start talking about contracts, and I'm thinking about Charles Omenihu. Charles Omenihu expected to come to Kansas City and kind of be one of the breakthrough edges in the National Football League, and he was looking like it. He had the suspension, and then he had the ACL, and now he's back totally healthy on a national stage, set to win a Super Bowl ring, maybe play in a Super Bowl, maybe get the bag, get a big contract. He has more strip sacks than anybody in the NFL in the playoffs, 4 of them. I think he's the kind of guy that could make a big play and put himself in the spotlight tonight.
Yeah, I very much agree with you there. He's motivated and has the talent to follow through with that motivation. Yeah, let me ask you this. We're running up against our time. So let's get your final prediction for tonight. Adam, what do you have for the AFC CG?
I have Chiefs 31, Bills 27. I think in the playoffs, the Chiefs occasionally get pushed. Their offense gets pushed to the point where they have to manufacture over 30 points. It doesn't happen a lot in the regular season. They don't have to go there. They don't let other teams score enough to have to go there. Tonight, I think this is a race to 30, and I think the Chiefs will win that race. What's your prediction, Matt?
Love it. It's interesting. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring, although I think both these offenses can take the top off if they want with the personnel when they're healthy. But I have 27-20 Chiefs. I think it's going to be actually a little like not as close as what people think it will, and which I think is going to make everyone super frustrated and sick of the Chiefs even more than they already are. And it looks like we're going to see the Eagles perhaps in the Super Bowl. If that's the case.
People will be really sick of that, but I would love some distance in the final score to really undercut that, the whole refs shenanigans, right?
Yeah. I just think, if the Bills were going to do it, they were going to do it last year when they hosted the game, and they didn't. And so here we are. So yeah, hey, for Adam Best, for our producer, Richard Durante, for the rest of the AA crew, my name is Matt Connor. Come back at halftime. Join us for the halftime show. And then post-game, the whole crew is going to be here hanging out and breaking down all the good and the bad and hopefully the celebratory from Arrowhead. Until then, let's go to the field, and we'll see you after halftime. Go Chiefs.